Okay, today I'm going to continue reading out information aloud from the Doctor Who fan wiki, the TARDIS Data Core, regarding the classic serial Inferno. At Doctor Who fan events, Nicholas Courtney frequently recounted an incident which occurred during shooting of the scene with the revelation of the brigade leader and his eye patch. The scene begins with Courtney having his back to the camera and to all the other actors before spinning around in his swivel chair to reveal the brigade leader's visage and eye patch. When the scene was shot, Courtney spun around to discover that all the other actors and crew members are also wearing eye patches. According to the story, he then proceeded to perform the entire scene as if nothing unusual had occurred. The eye patch story became so closely associated with Courtney that Stephen Moffat wrote scenes in which everybody was wearing an eye patch into the 2011 episode The Wedding of River Song as a tribute to Courtney, who had died earlier that year. During the scene set on the parallel Earth, a black and white image of the leader is seen on a Unity Strength poster in the technical store, the Doctor's hut on the regular Earth timeline, and as a large framed photograph on the wall of the brigade leader's office. The image used is that of visual effects designer Jack Kine in homage to the 1954 BBC adaptation of George Orwell's 1984, where the face of Big Brother was head of television design Roy Oxley. Kine had worked on the visual effects for that production. Inferno marks the first Doctor Who story to be set in a parallel universe. The scenes on top of the chemical tank in episode 2 are not easy for Jon Pertwee as he was afraid of heights. It took him 15 minutes just to summon up the confidence to film the scene. In episode 3, during the chase scene on that parallel Earth, Bessie's bumper gashed open stuntman Alan Chance's leg as he jumped out of the way a fraction later than he was supposed to. The gash was so severe that he had to go to A&E. John Levine stated on the DVD commentary that it was the worst wound he'd ever seen, and after Jon Pertwee saw the wound and learned he caused it, he became sick and almost couldn't carry on filming until a few hours later. Pertwee even went as far as buying Chance's wife a gift to apologise for the accident. It was gentlemanly of him. Olaf Pooley initially refused to put on the Prime Lord costume, but eventually Barry Letts persuaded him to do it, and Pooley was later glad that he did agree to wear it. A Doctor Who Unbound story later touched on a narrative element of this story. According to Sympathy for the Devil, a narrative set in a different parallel universe, research into the possibility of Stahlmann's gas was still ongoing in 1997, the year that the Doctor in that universe's exile on Earth began. Okay, interesting. This is the final story to feature the original TARDIS console prop. Having been in use since the show's first episode in 1963, the prop had gradually deteriorated over the years, with numerous bits and pieces falling off or being replaced. After this story aired, the prop was deemed unusable and junked. For the TARDIS console unit's next appearance in The Claws of Axos, a new prop, designed by Kenneth Sharp, was built. Okay, we'll read out a couple more. This was the last televised story to use stock music in lieu of an original incidental music score. Notably, many of the stock pieces used were composed by Doctor Who theme arranger Delia Derbyshire, making this the nearest she came to actually scoring an episode of the show. That is fascinating, actually. The RSF soldiers wear American M1951 pattern military fatigues, French M1892/14 webbing equipment, and are armed with Russian-designed SKS carbines. Depending on personal opinion on the trial of a Time Lord, this could be the last story to be longer than 6 episodes. It is also the last 7-part story. A scene in the brigade leader's office with the parallel universe characters listening to a radio report about geological disasters was cut from the UK transmission of episode 5, as the radio announcer was felt to be too recognisable as Jon Pertwee doing one of his famous funny voices. The scene also identified the area of the Inferno project as Eastchester, a name not mentioned anywhere else in the story. The scene was however retained for overseas screening, as it was thought audiences outside the UK would be familiar with Pertwee's comedy work. This scene appeared on the VHS release of the story in 1994, presumably because the only colour copy of the serial at the time was an NTSC version returned from Canada, but for the later DVD releases it was removed and featured only as a separate deleted scene. Odd. Well, we'll close it here and we'll continue this next time. Thanks everyone, I appreciate it really very immensely.